28th. Welcome for everybody on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. My name is Josh Levitan. I'm Fausto Senior Instructor here at Cyber Trading University. But for Ravina, Sam, Grant, Joyce, Phil, Ronald, Ray, Ron, I don't know why I said Ronald. I think I mixed up Raymond and Ron together there. Great to see at least all of us, Chuck, Kathleen included, all of our students, Elizabeth as well. Hey folks, here in Traders Talk, this is our live weekly Q&A workshop that we conduct normally exclusively inside our live trading room. But a couple times across the calendar year, I'll pop up on YouTube and do the full edition for everyone here live. So great to have all of us here. With that in mind, we have this Oscar trade still moving up right now. I don't think it really provides as good of a long opportunity at this point, but the purpose of this weekly workshop is to really go over stocks that we had covered from the morning session, from at least the market open, where I was doing the audio commentary myself this morning. Normally Fausto's in there with me. He was actually teaching the Phase 3 stock course class earlier today, so a lot of you folks inside our live trading room were there with him. And at that stage, he was going over Oscar. I was calling it out. So how could we basically go over this move from A to Z and explain, perhaps in hindsight now, as to why this stock not just went up, but made the exact move that it made. I was going to say minute by minute move, but really in terms of following the big money, we don't need to be that microscopic in terms of following a stock and knowing exactly why it's making the exact penny by penny move, but it's to say generally from A to Z, why did this stock move the way it did? So you see a lot of these lines on my chart already posted, a bunch of blue, a bunch of purple lines out there. Now we teach kind of how to prepare to follow these stocks. Here in Traders Talk we do, but the full gist of it we go over in the Phase 2 stock course class. We did that just over the last couple of days from yesterday and then from the end of last week on Friday, but then also coming up even in Phase 3, I'll be doing the afternoon class even today. But we'll go over the gist of it coming up here. So, ultimately for our students like Lawrence and Grant and Sam and Ravina, allow me just to ask you folks right now, we covered this even in class earlier this past week, where are we most likely to find the big iceberg orders out there? Between level 3, the program on the far right side of my platform, or on Bookmap level 4, where are we most likely to find, iceberg orders out there for a stock, especially a less expensive stock like Oscar Health? Especially something that, it moved up very nicely today. It's up over freaking 78% right now. But, hey, it wasn't like the fastest thing out there. Wasn't the most volatile thing out there. So, you know what? I would say just, hey, 50-cent levels and whole number levels. We would always say whole number levels, but for a stock like this, I'd be more inclined to follow 550. I'd be inclined to follow 450 if it were to pull back. I did not map any levels higher than 610, but you could say the same coming up here. The more it goes up, then you certainly keep going at 650, then $7 ahead, right? But otherwise, though, that's where I kind of plotted a lot of these blue lines. They represented iceberg levels to me. Now, I'll bring up Bookmap level 4 in just a moment. I'll show you what the order book actually looked like for this stock, among others here that we'll review here in a moment. But the purple lines coming up next, the purple that you may see, a couple of them dashed, one's thicker than another. Well, the purple, whenever I plot them, those are like historical levels from the daily chart or the weekly or monthly chart, just very strong historical chart levels. So if you go back on the daily or the weekly chart, you could plot this too. And remember, you don't need to try and plot every level out there on the stock, just those that are most relevant to where the stock is trading. So here actually very quickly, I had a line at 560, a line at 610, and then even from pre-market prior to 9 o'clock in this year, I had one as low as like 465, I think that is there. So we have 560, 610 that we'll kind of work off of. All right, so let me just plot this here. I'll show you what I was focused on. Basically right there, 560 or so. Ended up kind of holding around there briefly. I think it may have looked better on the weekly chart. Right there. And it was 560, kind of just holding off this little bottom here at this point. That's what I was mainly focused on. And then from there, a little bit higher at $6.10. Let me plot the line there. You can see a lot better. It's kind of just under and over from this 610 here. So that's mainly what I was kind of focused around, kind of generally holding around that 6 to 610 area. And then it ended up breaking back under it again here. It tested this once more as resistance. It broke above it by a few pennies, mind you, but it's the reaction after that matters the most, and it dropped off quite a bit for the week and closed a little bit lower. So you would still expect 610 to be a key integral level going into the market open for today. If whether it tops off there, gets close, maybe it makes a false breakout. And I say that more pessimistically looking at it now, obviously, right? Because this clearly broke above 6 and 610 just a little earlier. And I was a little late to the draw to take that trade, actually. I was on a coaching call with one of my students, Felix, and we were kind of more so catching up at first. But, hey, this kind of took us by storm. It was already over 610 by the time we turned to it. I felt like I was late. Normally these reversals tend to happen around 10:15, 10:30. And, it broke higher there, but it didn't reverse at the time. I thought that there was a point where we'd see this pull back and drop off a lot more. So I was more pessimistic, shortly around this time here, just once it broke back above 6 and 610. I'll bring up Bookmap in just a second, but obviously it just goes to show when a stock breaks through a big level, and this just follows what we preach otherwise. Hey, I didn't take the trade. I missed out on it. But when a stock breaks through a big level, we should look to get a pretty good reaction very shortly after. Hey, if anyone jumped in off that 610 break, God bless, it worked out, right? Ended up working out perfectly, up at least towards 650, maybe a clean 50-cent move up higher. Let's bring up Bookmap at least, and I'll go over this trade more so based off what the heat map looked like. For a lot of our students here, like Michael, who I want to give a big shout out to because he applied exactly what we covered in class even yesterday in the Phase 2 curriculum on a trade of his own. But a lot of what we cover here in class, just you apply it on every trade that we're calling out, and you're going to be able to find a pretty opportune time to enter a trade or opportune time to take the money and run. So at first, hey, Oscar took off right away. It ended up pushing up pretty quickly. Actually, at first, on the heat map side of things, this looked kind of ugly. The heat map here at first, level 4, this did not look as easy to read. It didn't look as clean. It doesn't look like there's much out there, but that's not how you should strategize around a trade. This just didn't look that great to me. So if anything, maybe 5 was the only prominent level to watch. Whole number level right there, like we just talked about. Broke above it early and ran. But then from there, $6 was your next key major resistance. I mean, that's the easiest to see level out there at the time. 52 plus thousand shares on the ask. So that became a big level to follow heading into the late morning. So, I was even watching this on the coaching call with Felix. Actually, we were watching it when it broke over 6 at first, and we didn't take the trade. We kind of just moved away to the VKTX. There were a couple of moves that Felix and I just missed there on this coaching call, and this is one of them. But at first, we turned away after it broke above 6, and it just didn't provide that oomph, that pop that you'd want to see. So I turned away, and then at that point, it broke higher without us. It's easy to say this part, but hey, what if Felix and I were watching this the whole time after? It dipped down there a bit towards 593, 595, and moved back. Well, to me, the more times that a stock is nipping at a big level like this, at least like 6, well, the more times it does that and you avoid all of the BS and all of the false breakouts here, well, if it can give you another chance, then the stock should, or, I should say, if the stock gives you another chance, it gives you a pretty good opportunity to enter. So with that, it ended up providing at least the entry there, Chuck, right? Then from that point, ended up taking off. So easy to say there in hindsight, but that 6th level finally provided a pretty good chance. And then really 610, that historical ceiling, we'll call it, right? So again, hey, even now just popped up a little bit more. There are plenty of moves that go without me because you certainly expect more of a pullback after a period of time. So, hey, the more this goes without me, kick myself a little bit, but eventually it's going to begin to make a nasty shake, get, maybe halted on the way down. I don't want to just say that so blatantly, but for as much as it goes up, it's going to get halted in one direction or another. So I'm led to believe it's just going to get even more chaotic. If anyone's in, I'm rooting them on, but otherwise I'll probably refocus on this trade after this workshop finishes up. One rule, if anything, would be that the more a stock pushes up, you would expect a false breakout off the first key test of a major resistance. So if we're assuming the next major resistance to be the whole number here at 7, then I'm assuming a false breakout there, if anything. If it pops above 7 coming up, look for it to shake right back down after. We'll check in on this trade coming up in a little bit. All right. So, hey, Oscar was a great move throughout the day and still right now, but this wasn't the only fish in the sea out there to catch. So, VKTX was as clean and as advantageous of a trade to try and jump in on than the Oscar. A little bit more expensive, but both moved up pretty nicely. VKTX also came out with news of its own. I have a lot of lines on this chart, folks. So, that could look very confusing to you, especially if you don't, know what these lines represent. I mean, hell, the more lines you have on your chart, it just makes it look more confusing. So, there came to a point on a couple of these stocks today. If you're plotting too many lines out there, then you're not doing a good job. There's something wrong, at least with your decision making. So you could probably focus on a different stock. You could probably delete some lines off your chart. So hey, to some folks, this might look like a lot here with all of the blue and purple and red. Certainly Fausto does not mark up his charts like this, right? I like to be a little bit more graphic, and I have certain meanings for these colors. So for instance, red. For our students like Ravina and Billy and Joyce and Carol, who I love to see here joining us inside our live trading room, let me ask you folks, on time and sales, what do we nickname red as? This is actually going to take me to a couple of good examples on this stock here. What do we nickname red as on time and sales? Ravina and Ray saying selling, and Joyce agreeing there too. Absolutely. Absolutely. Red means selling. That's the nickname. And it actually means for Sam and Sydney, it means volume filled on the bid, not the ask. Red means volume filled on the bid. So we covered that part of it in class just over the last week or so. But we nickname red as selling. See red at bid, right? And green at ask. But, again, I just say that red we nickname as selling. Well, hey, to me, if we keep seeing a stock test and poke at a big selling level, I would like to think then it should really look for a nice drop off, provide for a clean breakdown and drop off quite a bit, right? Hey, just because VKTX came out with good news doesn't mean it's going to pump up. We see plenty of these pop and drop moves or, reactions initially off of good news that comes out. Then the stock is on the loser side by the end of the day. I wasn't expecting this to be on the loser side by the end of the day. But my first thought on this trade going into the market open, I wasn't trading this going into the open in pre-market here. But here at this point, I'm thinking, all right, well, hey, if this ends up breaking under 1250 here, this could really tank and it could provide a short. So the first 3 to 5 minutes, we're not trading. The first 3 to 5 minutes, actually, I'm finishing setting up Fausto for the class that he's doing, and I'm on the mic myself, kind of juggling a couple bowling pins in the air. That's why I even say furthermore for myself, even, like, we're not trading the first few minutes. Well, over time, look what happened, because this broke over 1250. It did not break back under 1250 again, did it? So from that point, it actually provided a very good long opportunity, right? Now, as for Sydney and Sam here, at least that had asked or answered just earlier, the red, we take at face value initially as selling. But if the stock fails to break under that price, if it holds above that price, well, technically, the technical condition of that red means that it's filled on the bid. Well, hey, if you're placing a buy order out there with the rest of the orders out there on the bid, like that's a technical buy order, right? So if it's not going to break under 1250, then you could say, well, wait a second, that could be support then, right? From there, it took off. Now, hey, I missed it from 1250 initially. I was like a hair away from jumping in from 1250. I regret not pulling the trigger a hair earlier, but I was able to get some pretty good money on this stock. So I want to show you where I ended up taking this trade very shortly after. It popped up towards 13 and then pulled back, but I ended up getting in just as it was kind of building a higher low here. So here's what I ended up doing. There's no line on my chart here in between the red and at 13, just iceberg level, right? So with that, let me show you what I did on the VKTX, because I thought I missed it from 1250, but you're still so early on the morning where if this is going to hold 1250, then why not expect this to run higher? Because at that point, unless if it completely flops, well, if you play by the cyber clock rules, then you have till what, like 10:15, 10:30, perhaps at least to see this stock run. So yeah, I missed it from 12:50 at first, but over time it ended up breaking out. Now let me ask us here quickly. Try and ask this delicately so there's no miswording. Above the price, $12.60. Above the price, 12.60. What's the largest spike on the CVP column? On the CVP column above 12.60, what is the largest spike that you see? A couple of us saying 13, and I appreciate that because it's kind of close. It's kind of close. It's kind of close, right? So it's tough to see unless if you're like really squinting up close there, right? I mean, 13, there's a ton of volume here. Goes to show a huge iceberg order got filled there. Actually, before I give my full answer, here's what happened at 13. Like this instance, it broke through this order on the ask. Saw green on time and sales pop up there. Well, immediately after it broke under the level. That's a clear sign for a false breakout. But then right after it shook back under the level, we immediately had a new 40,000 shares out there on the ask. Goes to show how strong that one price is. But otherwise, though, once it ended up testing 13, yeah, you could say like right around 1280-ish here, right? Like kind of right there. So on the pullback, I waited for this to build that support off the 1280. I'll even move this line, making it a little bit better. But notice that it ended up breaking under it. It broke back over it. From there, it ran, right? So Jith and Sam and all of us here live, inside our live trading room at least, if my best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level on the way up, well, yeah, it broke over, or it went up to 13 and broke above it, and then it pulled back. Okay, well, let's find support. Well, we found that support level at 1280. So actually, even here, it started to nip under and over. I didn't take it from there exactly. It was on this bar. It smashed down. And then once it broke over the level, that is only when I jumped in on the trade. So I got filled right off of 1282 and like half a penny it was like in between 82, 83. But I set my stop just a little bit lower, right off of 1274, I think it was. It was about 9 or 10 cent stop I gave myself. It's a pretty volatile stock. So with VKTX and the move that it already made early in the morning, well, hey, you're focused on like dollar levels, if anything. The Oscar stock was slower moving. It's actually up a lot more now, percentage-wise, mind you. But the VKTX was more volatile, in my opinion, in pre-market. I wasn't as focused on 50-cent levels on this stock. I was kind of more focused every dollar, 13, 14, 15, and then the other ones that you may see here plotted. But that's where I could tell you, since I thought VKTX was more volatile, I thought there was pretty good opportunity for this to make a strong run up. And with that, I'm not going to give myself too loose of a cushion with my stop, but I'm not going to give myself an extremely tight stop of like 2 cents, 3 cents. Give myself a little bit more than that on this one. So thankfully, and it's easy to say the cookie crumbled well on this one. It ended up popping up very nicely after. I mean, hey, folks, I started off this Traders Talk going over a stock I blatantly missed out on. So, it goes to show you're not going to be able to catch everything out there, right? For the stocks that you diligently take the time to plot, the levels and you feel strong about it, then you should be more reactant. If you're a new student and you're not that reactant yet, that's okay, folks. It's like, I'm not going to sound that egotistical to consider myself like Tiger Woods at this. That's Fausto, if anything. It's this. I'm not saying he's been doing this 30 plus years, mind you. I've been doing this, though, 8.5 years every single day, almost every single weekday, Monday to Friday. I've taken very little days off, maybe a couple vacation days for an RV road trip back in 2016, maybe a trip to Mexico for a week. But otherwise, I've been doing this pretty much every singular day. It comes with the experience. Now, as a student of CTU, not just a trader, but as a student going through our curriculum in full, phase 1, phase 2 that we just finished up, and phase 3 with Fausto that he just started today. And again, I'll be doing the afternoon class for him actually coming up later on this afternoon. But as a student that has access to our full curriculum, You know this because you see this in class a lot more frequently than those that don't. You see these strategies play out on all sorts of different stocks that we trade throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, etc. So I'll miss out on some moves. And yes, the more a stock goes up without me in it, I'll definitely be a little pissed off like Oscar. Trust me, the more this pushed up today without me in it, especially from when I was first focused on it here at 6 with Felix, of course you kick yourself. It's like, come on, really? But you just learn. It's like, hey, for Carol and Jith and Glenn, I mean, especially Glenn and longtime students like Glenn, like Phil and Leda and Grant and Michael joining us here, has the market ever permanently closed since you've joined CTU? Aside from COVID, when there was a circuit breaker halt, has the market closed at all since you joined CTU outside of normal, regular market trading hours? No. Right? Now, with saying that, though, yes, there's going to be some stocks that you'll miss here and there, but there's a whole new list of stocks that we're going to trade tomorrow morning. There's going to be a whole new list of stocks I'll likely put on our watch list this afternoon that I don't know that will be popping at that time right now. So it's to say that you never know what's going to come across your plate. Don't get too caught up if you miss a move. Yes, again, the more it goes up without you in it, yes, you kick yourself more, right? So if this keeps pumping up without me in it, of course, it's like, I missed out on that move from 6. That was such a clean setup. But hey, the more that you kind of, to put it kindly, the more that we kind of fret on that and kind of focus on the negative like that, we're going to miss out not just on this move, but we're going to miss out on other moves that could be running otherwise that we could have been focused on. Again, VKTX looking back at this. So, just before, I thought this was a really good setup off of 1450. I ended up jumping in on this on a very small size, or I was on a half size with Felix on our coaching call. Well, just like I say to you folks, at least, if you're going to take an entry, you should look to expect a pretty good reaction off the level break. If 1450 is such a prominent level, and especially off the false breakouts already, if we already saw so much buying, so to say, off the level, and it breaks back over that price, like right where my cursor is, if you take that, you should expect a pretty good reaction off that level. It's an A-plus setup to take long. But if it doesn't make that push that you want, you get out, you take the money and run. So I actually end up going against my first instinct on this trade I took right from here. I got out before it even took me out. I said, all right, it's not going in my favor. I think it's just that's it. And it actually popped up a tiny amount more before it pulled, but still, it worked out because it's not making that reaction that you want. Don't force it. There are times where stocks are going to kind of grind on up, but that's not really what I'm expecting. That's kind of not my cup of tea. Even here off the 14 level later on here, right before we finished up the audio commentary in our live trading room, it broke over 14 here. Over time, it ended up pulling back under it, right place, wrong time. And then later on, with the previous buying interest that we already saw here off 14, well, hey, it rebroke the level, made for a clean 50-cent move up. Hey, this could have been easily taken here. I ended up jumping in on this trade right before I ended up jumping on with Felix, and I jumped in right from the 14 level, under and over, and it still led to a nice little reaction afterwards. So if you map out where the key icebergs are, if you have a good following of where the stronger reactionary levels are on a trade, and those are primarily built off volume in any direction, you're going to have an easier ability to just take a move. I mean, hey, that's why I sound so repetitive all the time here in Traders Talks. For any of our non-students here, you hear it enough as is, but for anyone that has the phase 1, 2, and 3 courses, you hear me say it that much more there. My best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level on the way up. Now, I know I say that frequently. If trading was that simple, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here either, right? So there's more to it than that, but that's where it all begins. If you can't grasp that, we're not going to get far. Now, if we grasp that concept, the question will become, all right, well, if our best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level on the way up, where is our big level? What's the big level that we're going to directly get in above? So if we don't have that part figured out, again, we're not going to get far. But if we have that figured out next, then it makes it a lot easier. We talk about this so frequent with rebreaks of a big level. Before 14, there was even 1338. Give me a sec here. 1338 here. See the thicker dashed purple line here? I know I got a lot of lines here right now. I'll even pretty this up, but actually just kind of make it easier for us right now. See the thicker dashed purple? That represents a key historical level taken from the daily or weekly chart. So if you look back at this weekly chart here, once again, the stock actually is not a new IPO, but doesn't have too much data behind it, like a few years behind it. That's it. We've traded the stock in the past, actually. So I started with Fausto. For any of our new members joining us here on social media, just watching this for free today live, I started with Fausto October of 2014. So this was a stock that we ended up trading for a little while on the way down at first, but then namely on the way up when it popped back in 2018 here. There were a couple of stocks that ran simultaneously. It was actually this, for any of my CTU historians here like myself, VKTX, and then at the same time, AMRN, or roughly around the same time that year in 2018 pop. So I kind of always think of those together. But either way, we've traded the stock in the past. If we kind of zoom in on the historical chart for right now, before I show that 1338, just really quick, you want to know what a key historical level looks like here? I'd say this. At 12 bucks, basically, right? At 11.90 at 12 bucks, key level right there. Unfortunately, it never pulled back there in pre-market. It kind of held maybe 20 cents above this line in pre-market early, and then it moved up. So if this stock pulled back down to this 12 level or 11.90, 12, under and over, I would take that trade so fast looking for the long. It was too early in the pre-market anyway for me to take it, and it still didn't make that perfect exact move. But otherwise, though, ended up making a nice run up higher. Take a look right here. Don't have like too many clear levels on this stock. You don't want to force it. So when I look at the tops here back from 2018 for VKTX in June and back in September or late August, roughly around 1337, 1343. Weekly high here in June, 1343. Weekly high here in September, 1337. So that is where I got the logic behind 1338 roughly it was. I kind of just shot in between those two price levels. So that dashed purple represented a key historical level to me. And, hey, it was nipping that level even prior to this. Like even earlier in pre-market, it was even doing that actually. So you could even go to say early in pre-market here. Look at this. Over it. Over it. Let me ask us here really quickly for Bill and Jith and Phil and all of us here just collectively. I just see a few names right now in the chat. When a stock is moving up, what color comes up on the tape? Green. And what do we nickname green as? We nickname it buying, right? So in essence, what if the stock continues to show an opportunity to test this price as resistance? What if it breaks above this price again as resistance? Well, that means that we're seeing more and more buying coming in. To be transparent, though, it broke under it here. It dropped off from there. All right, so perhaps we expect resistance coming up initially. Maybe the next time it tests that price, it won't blast over it right away. Maybe it will hold under that price again. I mean, hey, it's like kind of drifting off here sideways for a while. So the next time it retests the level, it's still, a little while since the last attempt, meaning right here, pop and drop. It technically held the level, right? At first, it held that level. It broke above it, yes, but then it smashed back down like 40 cents, 45 cents or whatever. Now, though, what happens if it can afford you another opportunity? What happens if it can keep testing that price? And, it's easy to say. We know what happened very shortly after that point, broke over it, ran up really well, basically a clean dollar move, and then ended up just kind of remaining around that area, around 1430-ish, 1450-ish still kind of. So, hey, just now it kind of held off 14. The more times it nips at this 1450 level, I'd assume the next resistance to be at 15. I know that for fact, even not even to say assume. We would assume at a minimum that the next level would be at 15, as that's the next whole number. But when there's a over 250,000 share sell order out there, I would say that that's going to be the resistance, right? So really quick, and it's checking on the chat right now on YouTube. First time checking right now. I got Mike joining us. Actually, one of our longtime students. Actually, do a bunch of one-on-one coaching with him. He's probably just away from the trading room today on travel, but on YouTube today, just kind of from earlier, looking at the 50-cent levels and whole numbers on I think it was on that Oscar stock, right, Mike? But great to have him there on YouTube. So with that, let's go over a couple of different questions that were sent in from email. Again, folks, for all of us on YouTube, not Mike, but all of us on YouTube otherwise, you got to join our live trading room. We normally host this workshop exclusively inside our live trading room. So with that, I think that we'll have the QR code coming up in just a moment, if I can get that up and running here in a second. How about that? All right, let's see if I can get that showing a little bit better there in the interim. Nope. All right, well, you got the QR code right there. I'll post that up at the end there, if anything. You could even go right down to the link, but you can get a free one-day pass, if anything. We'll post that QR code coming up just at the tail end of this Trader's Talk. But with that, though, let's go through email. I want to go through a couple of questions that our students took the time to write to me here first. So might have to fish through a couple of different emails kind of saying, hey, I'm getting back into the thick of things right here. So let's go over this. Perfect. From one of our longtime students, Lori. So I appreciate her writing me right now. She's been a little busy, a couple of things hectic just on her end. And with that, I think that she'll be a little bit more active coming up here soon. So I'm looking forward to having her back here more frequently, probably here in Traders Talk right now. So either way, let's hop to it. So from Lori asking, she made a quick trade this morning before class, and she was so excited with results. I love that. She got in on the Oscar trade. How about this? So we already covered Oscar, but we'll definitely come right back to it. I'm just checking Lori's email out for the first time now. Entered at 9:32 in the morning. Entered at the price, though, 506. Now, I specifically know Lori just from the coaching I've done with her and from being a longtime student of CTU. She is more comfortable trading the first 3 to 5 minutes. Like that suited her personality type. I just know that from my experience working with her. Now, that doesn't mean she's like looking for crazy volatile action. She's like, trading the level 5 stocks. No. I just know specifically with her, she has done all right with that. So that's not a surprise to me that Lori took that trade at 9:32. And I'm really happy that it worked out. Of course, she picked up about 23 cents, I think it was, on the trade just about. I know it continued to run, but I didn't get back in. Mark, her husband, needed me to do something while he was on conference call. And she was in class. How about that? So, I'll even say that, like, if you're in class, you shouldn't be trading. You should not be trading if you're in class. And I say that even if you're with Fausto in phase 3. There's a reason why it's called class. Your focus should be there, right? Especially if you're trading something else. I think Fausto was focused on Oscar there, but it's just that, hey, you want to have your focus on that screen. It's tough to even focus on your own trading without focusing on the class screen as is, right? So, I say that as like a precautionary measure. That's all. And I say that to anyone. I say that to anyone. Myself, I say that to anyone in any class before I press record, right? So, it makes sense to not jump back in. You had with great reason to not jump back in because you wanted your focus to be on class with Fausto and kind of see him pull the trigger, right? Again, for any one of us that have access to the phase 3 course, gold, platinum, diamond students, I'm getting the hot tag later for Fausto or from Fausto. I'll be doing the phase 3 class and trading live going into the close with you folks. So I'm looking forward to that. Basically a mainstay at this point in phase 3. I think just one class a month at least. I think I got 2 this month, if I'm not mistaken. So Barry, one of our members here, asking, hey, can you look at IOVA quickly? Yes, I will, because IOVA was a stock I wrote down yesterday. I wrote it down yesterday on the afternoon watch list, right? I don't think you can see this, but right there, IOVA. So I wrote that down on the afternoon watch list yesterday. And, hey, it ended up actually making a very strong move this morning. Popped at the open or shortly after, around 10 o'clock, 10:15 even, and then now continuing to go. Pretty cool move here. I like this. Let's take a look on the daily chart. There's definitely a lot of historical data there. So I don't know where we could find a strong historical level right out the gate. Nothing really sticks out to me just yet. Maybe this dip point back from June of last year. I'll bring up Bookmap right now. I'll just take a look to see what's happening on the heat map part. Also, folks, VKTX is pushing back up to 1450. So um, I'll go over that just once more. But the more times it kind of needles that resistance, you would look to expect the better pop up towards that 15 there. I don't know if I have the book map from yesterday in full here, Barry, for IOVA. Maybe I do. I hope I do. If I could, then I'll bring it up. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So this was more from yesterday afternoon. We were focused on it. It was a dud. Didn't really work out that great. A little push, but I was kind of hopeful because this stock, I think, gapped up in the after hours prior, or the pre-market here is showing some good activity at first. Again, the heat map, though, kind of looks ugly. There's not much that stands out as like a viable resistance level out there. So, going into the afternoon, I was kind of hopeful for like a little run up, but not much happened with it, right? Not much really happened with it. So I can't really use yesterday's levels here as much towards the trade for today. Again, nothing stands out to me that well. Maybe the tops here at like 624, 625 as just like a straight up chart level, not really an iceberg behind it there. But, if that price is holding that well as a top, I'll respect that. Nothing here I'm really that keen to use. Now, let's focus on the pre market today. Was there a big level in pre market here, Barry? Not really. After the open, and then let's say the first 30 minutes, was there a big level here for us to focus on? Not really. Nothing really here is standing out whatsoever. Now, where does that lead me to? Well, that leads me actually, Barry, on this trade to the one level that I gave a little respect to. I said to you, if like the highs from yesterday, we were saying that 624, 625 ish, it was kind of here from the chart, right? And it was even 622. My book map kind of made it look like it was 25. It was 622 here, we'll call it. If this chart level is this strong, then you could use that as a potential level for the following day. It was still messy around there, Barry, and really it just was flat. It was ugly. So, this is just a trade that I tell you, it's low risk because it's slow moving. You're not going to kill yourself if you take a loss on this stock, but it didn't seem like it was worth any real opportunity unless if that 622 level were to hold really well. Maybe at 10:15, 10:20 in the morning, here is your chance to see the bounce and the pop back up. That's one thing. But I can never see myself hoping and holding here, waiting for the reaction at this point. So I tell you, hey, if you're scanning mid morning and this pops up and you see it up a little bit and it's to the highs, and maybe if it could break this topic, and that's different, I guess. But man, this was a slow poke. So, it's just a stock that made a nice move here. Hopefully, there's a lot more to it because, hey, there was some activity in pre market yesterday that made me think there was a chance it can become a lot better of a move. Any historical level here right now? Had a big gap from like last year, basically. Not really. Getting close to a doji on this one daily candle from June 14th, 771, but that doesn't mean much to me when it's at 640. Yeah, not much otherwise historically. I'm not going to force a level out there looking at that. So, right now it's moving up a little bit, Barry. Hopefully there's just more and more volume that joins in on this trade or starts trading on this stock soon. If anything, I hope it pulls back soon for us to get a better entry. It's tough to see a stock just move up and up and up and up and up, and then for you to say, oh, let me just jump in now. Right? That's why an Oscar, the more it pushed up off the 6 level, like if I missed it from 6, then I'm not going to chase it, So I missed out on a solid one here, but better to be safe than sorry, right? I don't control Oscar Health, right? Like, even if you don't have Oscar Health as your health insurance, I feel like a lot of us know of Oscar. Like, they're a very well-known health insurance company. So, like, it's just to bluntly say, I don't control Oscar Health. I don't control 47.4 million share Oscar Health. I control 1,000 shares of those. I control 2,000 shares of those if I'm feeling spicy. I control 500 shares of those if I'm feeling more calculated and cautious, right? It's just to say, I only control my money. So, are there times where I misjudge a move and I wait and a stock pops without me? Yeah. Now, at the same time, though, as I say that, because of my experience and because of the discipline, maybe I could say that I have to the strategy I'm using, is it as likely possible for me to just kind of scan throughout the day, and especially for a stock I took the time to chart and line up, to turn over to a stock as it's retesting a big level that I know is very prominent from the morning, to the point where, well, hey, maybe if it breaks back above it here coming up, we can quickly take the trade. Are there times where, setups basically just fall into my lap? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that happens very often. Um, actually, through private chat, I hope he doesn't mind. I was talking to one of my students, Patrick, about this earlier today, even. Um, I don't know if he's away right now. He's got to satisfy the wife there, right? Taking care of him, he's got to take care of her, right? So with that, I don't know if he's tuning in live right now, but he wrote to me. He's like, um, sometimes it is so very simple to get the right trade. Other times difficult. But when I say simple, I don't mean easy. Just it's right there. That couldn't be a better message to kind of use here for this example, and really just the overall conversation we're having here, just in terms of planning a trade out. We're not going to catch everything, folks. I mean, for the amount of time I'm watching this and speaking in front of you folks right now, how many other stocks are moving right now that don't have my attention? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe there's a stock that's blowing the roof off right now, like BANL. I don't know. Maybe BMEA from earlier. My trade station getting a little slow right now, like it was from yesterday. I ended up fixing that issue, but I gotta log out, log back in for that to happen. We'll do that in 10 minutes once we finish. Just to say, hey, BMEA could be making a move without me there, right? For the time I'm watching one stock, well, hey, there's countless opportunity that I'm missing otherwise, right? Hey, Elizabeth killed it, I think, on CCL earlier this morning. It was up 6%, 6.5% at one point, made a pretty sharp run up. Missed out on it. All right, it happens. But if you're not getting emotional on those types of misses, then let's keep that same energy on stocks that we unfortunately miss. Like, again, the Oscar from, 610. I missed this. I knew this was the level, and I was there, right place, wrong time, and it just ran without me. That's literally the same thing as missing a stock that you just weren't showing any attention to start. It's a stock that popped without you, and you missed the move. It's just that one you had your eyes on more than the other, so you're getting more emotional with, like, oh, I did the wrong thing. I should have done this. It's the same concept. You missed out on it. Don't beat yourself up too much on it. The more you beat yourself up on it, the more you're going to miss out on the next trade, whether it's this one or another one out there that's moving, right? So, as much as we beat ourselves up, we shouldn't, but as much as we do, there are plenty of times where we just find an A plus setup that lands directly in our lap. So, hey, who knows? I'll be on a coaching call at 12:30, 1 o'clock with a couple of our students and take a small break after we finish up this live workshop. There might be a setup that falls into my lap. You never know. So, you always got to think half glass full, right? All right. Really quickly, folks, for all of us inside the live trading room, let me know if you have any other questions here. And all of us on social media, certainly as well. Normally, I don't have the chance to jump on here for a full hour like I do in the cyber group. I'll tell you what, I got an email that came in. I thought it was kind of like a spam email. It's actually an email from a student, I think. I don't think there's a question on it, though. It's kind of odd. I'll look to follow up on that in just a little bit. All right. So here's a good question from one of our students, James. And this was in spam, so I'm happy I caught this. But let me just get through this a little bit here, see if there's any others. All right, from James. That's the only one. Okay. So I had a question from James. This was actually sent from yesterday. It was meant for Traders Talk for today, at least. But it was basically to say, well, hey, in pre-market, I'm new to trading pre-market. I'm not able to use stops as you taught in class, and I'm not able to use market orders. I don't use those. But it's just to say that, how are you able to manage your like stops, so to say? Again, I know you can't use a real stop, but just if it goes against you, how many cents are you willing to risk on a trade? They didn't really give a specific example on the email, like a trade example, but perhaps we can kind of just go through one quickie here, maybe from today. Let me actually just do one quick, if you don't mind there, James, just 1 second. What did we have from yesterday? Was yesterday the SI move? Was yesterday the SI pre-market, or was that after the open that popped? That was more after the open. It popped. It ended up pushing up after the open. I mean, it was in pre-market, though. It was on our list, and, it was starting to make a subtle bounce early, but not really the best example to use when it doesn't make a great pop like that. Let's go back to VKTX. I'll kind of use that there. And then otherwise, there's a couple of things I want to show. Actually, just reminded myself here briefly, but a couple of things I do want to show before we wrap up. Directly coming off of class yesterday in phase 2, some really key tips with prints on time and sales that played out extremely well here today on VKTX. So we'll kind of go through that to wrap up. Let's see, from 8 o'clock. Let's do like 7 o'clock here to start, James. So, my platform TradeStation opens up at 8 a.m. Eastern time. If you're on like Webull, which I know, they could open up very early, or Interactive Brokers, but, whether Webull or Interactive, 4 in the morning, you could open up as early as. You don't need to be trading that early, honestly. I mean, Thinkorswim is open at 7 a.m. So, hey, there's a lot of action beginning on this trade, at least after 7 a.m. So let's say here, even at this point, James, like if you're considering a pre-market trade, this could be redundant because it's the same strategy on an entry as it is, in regular hours. But if you're looking at a key buying level already, and here you saw a couple of false breakouts here, well, if the stock could afford you another chance of a pop, of course, that's something that you're looking to enter off of. But if that is such an important level, it should go quick. It should make a good reaction worth your time. So let me kind of ask this question to everyone here to basically answer James's question. This stock did not pull back much after 13 here, right? It popped up pretty nicely for the time being, correct? Well, is there any reason in holding on to this trade if it were to dump all the way down to 12.50? Is there any reason to hold on for a 50-cent loss if you know it's not going to make that move upward at the time? I know a lot of us aren't as comfortable yet with setting tighter stops because you're still adjusting to the volatility and the shorter reactions that you're looking for, meaning that, from a swing trading perspective or investing perspective, you're going to be a little more, not lackadaisical, but a little bit more lax in terms of the price in which you're setting your stop. And you're probably more prone to checking it in like, maybe a couple hours a day, a couple times a day, rather than like every minute, every couple minutes. So with that in mind, at least, if you know a stock is going to make a quick reaction and it breaks over the level, but then it instantly pulls back under said level. It didn't do that as much here. But if it were to have made that move, then you get out instantly, James. You don't want to hold on any longer. This stock in particular is pretty dangerous to trade in pre-market, especially prior to 8 o'clock when there's not as many eyeballs on it compared to after 8 o'clock. It's simply just that you can't set stops like you brought up. So you can't rely on that automated type of order to take you out. You have to have your finger on the trigger. So for a stock that has a thinner book, a stock that has more spread out orders on the bid and the ask, let alone here, how about in pre-market, you need to be correct with your entry. And not to put like pressure on you with that, but it's simply that There's no reason to hold on any longer than you should if it goes against you. It's as simple as that, especially off a rebreak. Especially off a rebreak here. Popped it once, popped it twice. I know it broke under it here, but this could be a very telling moment where it breaks back over the level and for that to potentially get flipped over time into support. But, that's where you got to say, even here on VKTX, if you jump in off 1450, you want to see a quick reaction. It doesn't make sense to hang on here during this chop. You don't want pop and drop. And even worse, in my opinion, is pop and chop. Felix. There we go. So you want to pop and for it to run up. So this was a pain in the ass off 1450, but it was starting to make a bit of a reaction. Even at that, if this fails to run up still, if this pulls right back under 1450 here now, that's bad news. So you want to see a very sharp reaction off the level. If you don't get it, don't fight it. Hey, if you make your money on the morning, whether it's your day's pay or some good cushion money, you could afford taking like a dinky -2 or a break-even trade or maybe a -4. It's okay, especially now at this time of the day. You should be lowering your risk size to begin or your position size to begin with. If not, keeping it the same, you're not increasing it, that's for sure. So heading into this time of the day, you do want to be more cautious in that regard, but same to be said. You can't swim upstream. So, if this pops up higher from here, I would be very happy because thankfully 1450 would hold as support. But if it pulls right back down here at this point, given how much volume got filled off this level, you even just see it on the matrix. This is basically the CVP column on Bookmap here. So it broke over the 1450 finally again and needs to make the better move here now coming up. From Barry asking here briefly, can you show how the market makers are trading on NASDAQtrader.com for IOVA? So basically with NASDAQ Book Viewer there, Barry, you're going to be able to see the big iceberg orders out there on the bid and the ask, if there are any, I should say. So what I will do is I'll at least pop up, NASDAQ Book Viewer. That's the program that Fausto shows in his free webinars. Basically just to show it, or just to explain it as I load it up. My program on the far right side of my screen, the TradeStation Matrix, that is the equivalent to the NASDAQ Book Viewer in terms of the purpose, the job that it does. It provides the same service to you there. So I'm going to load up the NASDAQ Book Viewer. First, let me do it for this one because this one we're following mainly here. This VKTX. Then we'll go to your IOVA. Give me a brief moment here, folks. I knew something was up here. Something was up on the book viewer settings. I'm like loading up on my other screen. I was like, wait a second. Something definitely is not right now. And I figured it out. Here we go. All right. So there we go. Looks good. So this is the NASDAQ book viewer, not for the IOVA yet, but for the VKTX. So right now there is like really no substantial order out there, no clear iceberg order out there. If we expand this, I'm sure we'll run into 15, and there's the 218,000. About 93 total orders, making up the 218,000 through the Nasdaq at $15. So that definitively is your iceberg level right now at this time. It broke over 1450. Maybe there was an order out there at the time on the last break, but otherwise now it's just 15 is your next clear resistance. There's no real iceberg on the bid, and that's normal. Just because a stock is moving up doesn't mean it's because of an iceberg order on the bid. That's like only a little extra icing on the cake there. Let's go to that IOVA trade though to wrap up. So right now, I showed Bookmap just a moment ago, Barry, so to compare it to Book Viewer here, if anything, if there wasn't much showing on Bookmap on level 4, there's not going to be much showing here on Book Viewer, I'd imagine. So it doesn't look really too clean. Nothing really stands out that abruptly. Nothing stands out. Like, it's not like this is 55,000 shares. If that was that much bigger than everything else, that's one thing. So that will also tell you don't need iceberg orders in general for a stock to make a move up. Actually, let me ask us this question before we finish, because a little pop quiz. I'm going to phrase it probably in a fairly delicate way, make it kind of hard for us here. Uh, when I say in class that we need to have our foot on the gas pedal, in order for a stock to move up or move down, we need to have our foot on the gas pedal, right? What program on this platform here is our gauge to tell if the foot is on the gas pedal or not? What's that gauge? What's the speedometer? How could you tell if the foot is on the gas pedal? What program here? Jith says bookmap, excluding bookmap, excluding bookmap. That's not the answer I'm looking for, folks. We cover this in class just the past couple of days. If you were a student in class, then you heard me say it. Bookmap is the end all be all. That will probably be the answer to everything. So, yes, bookmap. But on this platform, notice how I'm phrasing it, folks. Listen to what I'm saying. On this platform, what is the foot on the gas pedal? Now you're saying it there, right? A lot of us were saying it just a moment ago. I just wanted a couple of us more. So time and sales, absolutely. Time and sales, not just seeing these iceberg orders or lack thereof, maybe, but it's to see, all right, well, hey, are those orders actually getting broken through? If they're not, you're not going to see anything pop up on the tape. So if all of a sudden you see a big iceberg order get broken through, and then all of a sudden you see a lack of volume coming in, a lack of green on the tape primarily, then that kind of means like, oh, shoot, that order got filled. And it's like, there's like no real buying coming in after. What gives? So time and sales is the speedometer. That's where you're able to tell if your foot is on the gas pedal and to what degree, right? So just because this stock is moving up doesn't mean it's because of level 3 and iceberg orders out there. Level 3 provides potential support and resistance. It does. So if there was an iceberg order out there on the bid or the ask, then I can blatantly call that a support or resistance, a potential target for the stock. If there was an iceberg at 660, if this was 55,000 shares, I would say that's your next clear resistance on the trade. I'd say that's a potential price where the stock will move up towards. But that doesn't mean that, the stock isn't going to move up if there's no order out there at all. Follow me? So it's basically seeing time and sales coming in to determine if the stock is going to continue to move in a certain direction or if it's going to stall out or maybe just flat out reverse and go the other way. We wrap up here, folks, with VKTX. So finally, VKTX, a little pain in the ass level here, right? But hey, just goes to show, and you don't want to be that stubborn and that maybe one will kind of call it insane, but strategy will pay off. If the stock could afford you the chance to get in on a rebreak, you'd take it. So it's to say, at least, I took one trade on this off 1450 earlier. I didn't take it right here. I'm flapping my gums, a little busy with that. But you'll see me trade coming up this afternoon for all of our students at 3 p.m. I'll be on the horn trading for you folks in phase 3. It's just that I took one dinky loss on this. It was like a -2 on full size. It was -4 on half size, technically. It's just that, hey, if the more and more this is gnawing at this level, you would like to think eventually, if it's affording you that chance, it should look to make a pretty strong reaction. So finally here, as we were talking about it on the rebreak here, it popped, it made that move up, made that better reaction, took a little bit. You may have taken a break even or a small loss beforehand, but it was doable. It was takeable. And now we have to worry about the next big level ahead at 15. All right, folks. Now, for all of us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, the works. Actually, that's scroll on the bottom there. Here's what I want to do. For all of us on social media right now, it looks a little odd right there. I got to get the background out there, but otherwise, you could scan that QR code. Nope. not that. I got to remove that there if I could. But you could scan that QR code, join us inside our live trading room. It could be for today, tomorrow, at any point over this or next week. But join us for a free one-day pass. You could actually just sign up right there by scanning that QR code right there on the screen. But otherwise, though, you could feel free to do that today or tomorrow coming up. We look forward to having you there. Any questions that you have prior to joining us inside our live trading room? Let me get this damn QR code off the screen now so I can post my email here and finish up. There we go. Got rid of the background there at this point. 1 second, 1 second. There we go. A lot better there. For all of us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, the works. But here's my email address, josh@c2trading.com. Any questions that you have, feel free to shoot me a quick email there. May as well get that up one more time, that QR code, since I got the background out now. There we go. A lot better now. So you can scan that QR code, and you can join us inside our live trading room. All right. But our next audio broadcast for social will be later on today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. That will be for all of us inside the live trading room as well. But I'll be sticking around inside our live trading room all throughout the day for Jith, Sam, Ray, Warren, and Manuel, Sydney, Barry, all of us alive right there right now. Thank you, folks. As always, I appreciate you folks joining us each and every week, each and every Tuesday morning, that is. Feel free to private chat me if you have any questions, folks, throughout the day. But again, I'll be back on the mic just for all of us collectively later on, just at 2:30 Eastern time. All right. I'll talk to you all then. Take care.